Bezrat Hashem, start a shiur in the series that we have, a shiur on Melachot Shabbat. We continue to learn the laws of Shabbat. We are talking about bishul. Today, as last time we have mentioned at the end of the shiur, that we'll be talking about the concept of shehiyah and chazara. And we have much more still to talk about these concepts, so just to clarify everything and just to understand everything. Again, we are only just getting an idea of what it's like, so we should be able to understand how to act properly and what is to be done and what is not to be done on Shabbat. Okay, so we've explained that there is a concept called bishul. Bishul means cooking. Okay, bishul means that there is a change done to something by means of heat, which specifically means heat of fire. Meaning, it could be to food items, it could be non-food items, it could be non-edible too. A person could be ovel bishul by heating up metal till it becomes red, where the metal comes to a point of expanding, right, becomes red, and it gets broader. So that alone, metal becoming soft from being hard, it became soft. That itself also will give you a transgression, which is also a deodaita. Don't think it's a rabbinical prohibition. It's a Torah prohibition. Okay? Same thing will be is that when you use something that was soft and by cooking it you made it hard. For example, an egg. So you don't cook the egg, it's soft. Once you cooked it, it became hard. There's a change done, caused to the egg by means of fire. That is a concept of bishul. Now this is nothing to do whether you light a fire or you don't light a fire, whether you kindle a fire or you don't kindle a fire. End of the day is bishul itself, cooking, a change being done to the item itself is a Torah prohibition. Then there's another Torah prohibition which is called the prohibition of havara. Havara means by making a fire on Shabbat. Making a fire on Shabbat is another prohibition. It's a Torah prohibition. You should be aware of the fact that it is a very serious transgression, not any less than cooking. If somebody hires a fire or lowers a fire, he transgresses the law of Havala and also Kibui, extinguishing a fire. So that is something that people have to take into consideration also. So here comes a very interesting concept, the concept of leaving food on fire. Now, we made one thing clear, that people have to keep Shabbat. When we say people have to keep Shabbat, that means no matter what age they are, father, mother, or how young they are, children, right, daughters and sons, all have the same obligation of keeping Shabbat. Not only do men, women, and right, what age they have to have an obligation to keep Shabbat, right? And those who are under the age of bar mitzvah, yes, there's a concept of besides chinuch, there's also a law that says you're not allowed to cause your child to do chilul Shabbat. If let's say a father wants to accomplish a chilul Shabbat by telling his son, go, shut off the fire, shut off the light. Even if he's not the age of the bar mitzvah, such a father in the days of the Chachamim would be taken and would would be beaten up. He would be getting a beating until the point he would come to the point saying, I'm not going to do it anymore. There is a concept, they say that on Shabbat, the Gemara brings down the case where they say that one time they lost the keys for the shul and they were not able to open the doors. So what they did, I think it was Rabbi Yanai, the Gemara says over there, that they purposely, the area where they knew where the keys were lost, they sent children to play over there. And the normal thing is when a child goes to play there, whatever he finds, what does he do right away? He runs to somebody else and says, oh, look what I found. I tell him, oh, thank you very much, exactly what we're looking for. Take the keys and open the door. So that is a way how they did not tell the child to be Mechalel Shabbat, but they did it, they brought it about. They caused the children to go play there, and that's how they were able to get the keys. But deliberately to tell a child to go to be Mechalel Shabbat, that's asur, that's a big no-no. Not allowed. Not allowed. I've seen it so many, and I did not only hear this, I've seen parents, foolish parents, uneducated parents going ahead and telling that to their children, which is asur, not allowed to do that. Now, there is another thing that the concept is, to the extent they say, even someone who's a cheresh, shoteh, right? Someone who is a deaf mute, that is patur from the old mitzvot of the Torah, It does not give you the green light to go ahead and tell him, oh, because he's a deaf mute, he's not obligated to keep the Torah. Oh, let's do all the Chilul Shabbat we need. Right? Go bring that deaf mute. Tell him to be Mechal Shabbat. He doesn't get punished, no schar v'onesh for it, right?
But they teach him today.
Huh? What do you mean they teach you today? You could train a monkey too. That doesn't mean he's smart. I will say it clearly. Yeah, I'm giving you an example. I did not mean to say to a point that someone who's deaf mute that he's a monkey. I didn't say that. What I meant to say is, you telling me, they train them. I tell you, they train monkeys too.
Not train, teach.
They teach monkeys too.
They do everything you
They
do.
teach, again.
The monkey doesn't do everything you do.
Again, you could train a monkey to do everything. It's possible. Now, let's go on. Next. Okay, the next thing we have is like this. Then there's the concept of someone who's a shoteh, someone that's crazy. Does not give you the green light to go ahead and say, you know what? Oh, let's use him. Doesn't mean, it's not so simple. There are situations, let's say it's a situation where Chilul Shabbat has to be done, and there's no other way how to avoid the Chilul Shabbat. There's no other way how to avoid Chilul Shabbat. Then in that case they say, we have to decide who should we tell to be Mechal Shabbat first. Does the shoteh go before the cheresh and someone does the imbecile, someone that's crazy? Yeah, does he go first? Comes to the point of when there's a need to be Mechal Shabbat, does he go first? Or he doesn't? It's a long discussion about it. It's a big discussion in the poskim. Yes, no, yes. But just by the way, I want to tell you something. There's a Tosfot in Ivamot to bring out that you should know that when Chazal say that someone who's deaf mute, right? Someone that's deaf mute, we say that he's considered to be like a shoter choda. He has no mind. It does not mean he doesn't have the completely doesn't have any noodles. They have. As I'll say, data kalishta they have some sort of understanding of knowledge they do have. And that's why you're able to do so many things. They go ahead and you get all types of therapists, right, to come and to do all types of things in order for them to learn and to train them how to do everything. Okay, that's a discussion as far as that. Now there's another prohibition that the Chachamim and the Torah said is that one.
You can't tell a goy the valid, you can't tell somebody.
Let's. I'm getting somewhere. What's it? Slow down. Then there's another concept. There's another concept that say that what about? Then there is another concept which is what about making? Next thing you have to know is that you're not allowed to tell your animals to do any malacha for you. Animals are not allowed to do any work for you on Shabbat. If you can accomplish a malacha deoraita on Shabbat by making your animal work for you, that's asul to be done. For example, you load a donkey, and you make the donkey to carry things out for you from Rishut HaYachid to Rishut HaRabim. You put the stuff on the donkey, it's in the Rishut HaYachid, and the animal carries the stuff out for you into the Rishut HaRabim.
By itself?
By itself. You're not allowed to have your animals work on Shabbat. Mechamel. Chazal says it's prohibited.
It says in the Torah, huh?
No, if the animal was loaded with the stuff from before Shabbat, we're not talking about that. Even then, there's a big she'elah how to do the hanacha, because if the animal stops for a second and then he continues walking, there's a whole calculation. It's not a simple discussion. There is a lot to it. Your animals are not allowed to perform any work for you. Now we say animals, that includes roosters, chickens, no matter what kind of animals, whatever malacha you're able to accomplish by having this animal do to work for you, that is asul to be done on Shabbat as well. It's machlokes in Gemara Masechet Shabbat. Yes.
What if the rooster wakes you up? That's like a long clock.
No, that's not doing malacha on Shabbat.
Go to shul and learn.
Let's go on. Okay. Today's roosters are the babies in the house. Don't forget. Let's go on. The next thing you have is like this. The next thing you have is what about your kelim doing malacha for you on Shabbat? Kelim. Now there's another kind of say, well, could we tell a goy to do malacha for you on Shabbat? So that's a big discussion of the Amirat Nochri. It's one of the most difficult concepts in Melachot Shabbat, which are not so simple, which today I've seen, not only heard. How they say, right away, go call the goy, right? Hey, we'll get him to do whatever we need. Not so simple at all. Every situation and to the finest detail will make a difference. It's not so simple at all. So therefore you should know it's not a simple thing just to say like this, kalach liyad, call the goy. It's not, you do a rabbinical prohibition. It's not a joke. You have to be careful. Then there's the concept of having your dishes doing melacha on Shabbat. Now here's the interesting concept. A pot that you're cooking in it, that pot is doing a melacha deoraita. It's doing work. Without this pot, you cannot cook. You're cooking by the means of the pot. Now we know that Machloket Bet Shammai Bet Hillel and Gemara Masechet Shabbat Perek Rishon, a whole discussion there. Bet Shammai were Machmir. Bet Shammai said you're not allowed to have your pots to do melacha for you on Shabbat too. So how will you ever keep your food hot for you on Shabbat? I guess they had a system of atmana. They had a system of maybe when the food was cooked fully. When you had the food being cooked fully, then there was no melacha. The pot's not doing any melacha for you. The food is cooked all the way. Or, let's say they did atmana, they did installation, they wrapped up the food for you in a way that there was no melacha deoraita at all. But to actually have the food which is not cooked fully on Shabbat, right, continue being cooked on Shabbat, let's say upon the onset, right, on the onset of Shabbat, as the Shabbat was beginning, your food was still raw. So according to Bet Shammai, you were not allowed to keep that pot of food on the fire. Why? Because that pot is doing a melacha deoraita. You're not allowed to do it. That's what according to them. Now we do not pass in this way. We hold like the Bet Hillel, and we say that our pots are allowed to do work for us on Shabbat. Allowed to. And therefore, this is where it's going to come into the picture. So we have like this. So there is a concept of a vessel doing for you melacha on Shabbat. Now here's an interesting concept. How can we have, on the onset of Shabbat, right? Now this we have to explain to you. Today, the easiest way how to skip this whole process is chas shalom, eat raw food. No, it's not what I said. Eat. But the easiest way to solve most of these problems is put that sheet of metal on the fire, yeah, and you solved the whole concept. You don't have a problem at all. Now, but we have to know that a lot of us, Baruch Hashem, do travel, and a lot of us do go around, and therefore a lot of times there's no possibility of, let's say you were traveling and somehow you end up being in no man's land. You got to an area where there's not even Chabad, nothing's there. Wow. And you come to a point of you have kosher food, kosher ingredients but you have no kosher food. And you want to you have a kosher pot too. And you want to cook food in an inn that you got into. There's an oven range or something. And you want to make food. What to do? Right? Shabbat's about to start. You don't have a blech. What situation can you keep the food on the fire? What situation you cannot keep the food on the fire? Of course, today the halakha, when you are in your own home, it's self-understood. Even when you do not need a blech, we still tell you put on a blech. Why? You have to have it, because that is what's customary already. Because it makes things easier. People do not come to a point of making problems at the end. Because it will be a problem that if you took the food away to put it back on the fire, it will be a very big issue. We have talked about that if there's no cover on the fire. Then there's another issue that's going to come up is that if you don't have a blech, the problem will be is how could you even start keeping your food on Shabbat? Because right now we just said that if the food, right, the pot can stay. If it was put before Shabbat on the fire, it can stay there even though it's doing the malacha for you, it's doing the work for you of cooking, right? But there's a different problem. The Chachamim came to of making a decree of something called Shema Yichateh. That we were worried, Chachamim were worried that if they would allow you or anyone to leave the pot of food on the fire and the food is not cooked all the way, the tendency is, chances are, the food is not ready, and the wife says, my husband is about to come home, and she hires the fire, right, because it's not cooked all the way, or otherwise he'll have my head. So this way, Chachamim purposely said, listen, there has to be a system how we're not going to come to a point of saying, just the point of hiring a fire. Like the famous story they had with I think I heard a story with one of the holy people. I think he was with the Baba Sali. They said one time, his wife served him chamin on Shabbat. She gave him hot food on Shabbat. He looked at the plate of food and he didn't touch it. And his wife was wondering, like, what's going on? How come he's not eating the food? So I worked hard preparing it. As it is, he used to have tanit afsaka. He used to fast from Shabbat to Shabbat. Barely ate. He was always weak. It was a known thing. He did it a lot of times, by the way. And that was done for many reasons. Tikkunim. Something that we don't...
He was still able to learn. Huh? He was still able to learn.
Sure, able to learn, but still, he was very weak. It was a known thing. He was sick, weak. It was not a simple situation. Now, so he came to a point of, like when the food was brought, he pushed it away. I'm not eating it. So the lady who was a friend with the wife of the Baba Sali's wife, she came over to him and says, no. He says, Probably your husband enjoyed that chamin on Shabbat, huh? He says, on the onset of Shabbat, I saw Shabbat was came in already. I saw that your fire was low. And I said, there's no way this food's going to be ready by tomorrow. No way. Is it going to cook at all? So I went ahead and I did you a favor. I hired the flame. So the wife says, now I know why my husband did not touch the food at all. Now I know why he didn't touch it, because Masari was able to tell that the food has something to it that there has no kedusha, has no the sanctity of Shabbat. Chilul Shabbat was done to it. So he just pushed it away. Cannot have it. So the problem issue we have is like this: we're worried that if we allow you to leave food which is partially cooked, we'll talk about what's called partially cooked on the fire. They were worried if they would allow you to do that on the onset of Shabbat. You're not doing anything wrong. You're allowed to leave the pot on midoraita, no Torah-wise, it's allowed 100%. The problem is that because it's not cooked all the way, and you, Baruch Hashem, right? The wife has a tendency to hire the fire, the husband has a tendency to hire the fire, because it's just something that you're used to. You come to the pot, you hear like saying, something is wrong, I don't hear the bubbling in the pot, right?
What if the kid does it?
And the hand just goes, it's a big she'elah, because after all, the Chilul Shabbat being done to the food is not so simple. The fire was higher.
It's considered like automatic.
So we'll talk about that. That's not something that we have to have a discussion about. So I didn't really see the poskim talking about it yet. Hopefully it will come to me one day. But let's look at the concept. Let's say, so we were worried that maybe you're gonna hire the fire. So what was the Chachamim? What did they do for us in order to prevent a person from coming to the point of hiring the flame? What did they do about it? So they said like this. They said that we're going to have a concept called Garufa Uktuma. Garuf Vekatum means two things. Garuf means either, in the old days we know they used to cook with charcoal, right? They used to have wood, which would turn into, by means of fire, would turn into coals, right? And there they would stay hot, right? And they would supply heat to the whole oven. And by the means of those ovens, they were able to cook the food like this way. So they would do right on the onset of Shabbat. What they would do is as follows. They would come and take a shovel and they would take out all the coals out of that oven. And when they took out all the coals out of that oven, that does not mean the oven became cold. The oven stayed very hot. Very hot to the extent that it was still able to continue cooking, but not cooking like as if the fire was actually there. Very strong, very high,
Not for long.
high heat for long enough in order to cook the food. To my understanding, that when I learned the Gemara, it comes to a point of even thinking that it would actually last you that long, that it would still be hot by the next day too. Let's go on. If you learn the Gemara Masechet Shabbat Perish Tishi, you're going to come to say yes. It for sure means that. Because from the cases and the situation, and from the way they speak and the way they mention all the cases that are there now, you should be able to come to the point saying, 1 second, how is it possible? It can't be that it should be even a question during the day, things for sure it's cold. No. Because the understanding is no, it would still be remaining hot. What kind of ovens they use in those days, I don't know. I haven't seen one. So there's a whole discussion about it in the Gemara. Now listen to it. Either they would take out all the coals out of it, or another thing they would do is they would go ahead and they would take ash. That burned completely. Take it and cover the coals completely with the ash, so they would not see burning of the coals at all.
But that would kill the coals.
No, they would not actually kill the coals. It would diminish their strength. It would lessen the heat.
For 2 hours it's done.
Again, you put it on, you put but 1 second. If I would take out the charcoal out of it, the oven itself will still remain hot.
Yeah.
The point is that when you cover the coals with ash that you had collecting, right? By covering that, what you do is you don't actually kill the flame. What you're doing is you are diminishing its powers. But the point is not to diminish it. The point is that when you come to a point of taking your shovel, right, and saying, where is that fire, right? Let me stir it a little. Let me stir those coals. So the heat should rise, so my food should cook faster. So he said, but when you bend down to do that, what do you see? You see the fire is covered with the ash. This automatically gives you a wake-up call. Why are my coals covered with ash? I never had that anything like that. So, I remember, it's Shabbat today. This was like a reminder. It will be like a wake-up call that today is Shabbat, don't touch the fire. That is how we are all familiar with this concept today, that people use something that's called a blech. What they did is they took a sheet of metal, and they take the sheet of metal, they cover the fire with it. So by that sheet of metal covering the fire, that gave them a awakening, saying, wake up, Shabbat, don't touch the control knob, right? The knob that you adjusting the heat, the flame of the heat flame, the fire flame, right? The flame of the fire, that would already give you a wake-up call. Don't do it.
Bro,
Yes.
what if somebody, you go to somebody's house and they have open fire?
No blech, and they have an open fire. Okay, we'll talk about that. That's exactly where the point we have to talk about. I'll explain to you how there are halakha that will say perfectly fine, there's nothing wrong. And I'll explain to you how, because as long as they don't touch the fire, that you say for sure that it didn't help whatever they did with the fire, whatever they do, the food's going to be for sure perfectly fine. We'll explain right now how exactly it is. So this concept of garuf and katum was only needed if the food was not cooked to the extent where it was edible. What's called being edible is machloket rishonim, something that you have to know, and you have to remember this because it's very much applicable for all of us, that we have to be knowledgeable in these concepts. A lot of us don't even know, we never heard of these things, by something called machal ben drusai. There was a famous person in the time of the Gemara, Chazal, they called him ben drusai. They didn't call him by his name. They said he was the son of drusai. He would eat his food, right, when he was partially cooked only. He was on the run, he was a fugitive. The government was after him. He was like a, what they call him, Robin Hood, right? Robin Hood, that's what he was. He was like the Robin Hood. He used to go around and rob people, right? So because he used to rob people, right, robbing the hood, right? So because he was the Robin Hood, automatically the government had they would send, they had an amount for his head. There was a price tag on his head that he was wanted, right? Some are not wanted, but he was most wanted. And they wanted to kill him. And he was always on the run. So he was never allowed to slow himself down. So what he would purposely do is he would kindle a fire, cook the food. He would come to the point of, having like a fork, right? Checking it to see how far it cooked. As soon as he would reach a certain point, he would say, forget about the whole thing. Put the water on the fire, extinguish it completely, eat the meat or whatever it is, and continue running. That was Ben Drusai. It was a famous Ganav, a thief, a robber, a Robin Hood, right? That he was on the run all his life. Now listen to what happened, because now there's a big machloket in the Shonim exactly what's called Machal Ben Drusai. There's machloket Rashi and Rambam. Rashi learns Machal Ben Drusai is Shlish Bishul, 1/3 of cooking.
What kind of zechut this guy has?
1/3, huh?
His name till this day.
Happens to be he hit that point. He was the cook. He was the cook. He was the cook. No, because happens to be he was the cook.
That happens to be.
They didn't have another guy that was famous for it. Okay, anyhow, so when you would tell people Ben Drusai, everybody knew. We know the halakha. We know that. It was the easiest way to remember the halakha, I guess. So they said. So Rashi learns it means 1/3 of bishul. But the Rambam, on the other hand, he disagrees. Says no, it means a half, 50%. Rambam. Yes, the Maimonides. Just you can make it clear. The Rambam, Maimonides. So he says Chatzim, with machlok, it depends on what. So the Katchila for sure, when it comes to Shabbat, you have to be machmir, right? So they say you're supposed to be holding by. It's machlok in poskim. So they say, bottom line, what we pass in the halakha is b'diavad. The Mishnah Berurah brings down, if you have no choice, let's say you came home last minute. You ran into the house, right? And it's few minutes before Shabbat, and you know that within these few minutes you're able to do something to the food, that you're able to bring it to third cooked, then you'll be allowed to leave it on the fire for it to continue cooking. Because if it's not third cooked, you have a problem. Yes?
It's all talking a part of food, that meat.
No. Slow down. No, you're going to mix everybody up now. Let's not make a differentiation when it comes to the slow down. We're getting there. We'll explain everything clearly. I have a pot of food. There's meat, there's potatoes, there's beans, there's peppers, whatever you want, seasoning, spicing, whatever you want is there. There's water, there's liquid, akol bakol mikol. Now the pot is cooking. Now I'm talking about I'm not talking about with the blech. I'm talking about without a blech. No blech at all. Telling you what halakha is. I usually don't want to mention this at all. It's not something for people to know. But there are situations in life where this might come in very handy. And you must know the halakha, so this way you could go around and play. We always tell people use the blech. Always use the blech. And always make sure that the food is fully cooked. The minhag, very well spread, the Mishnah Berurah says that today, minhag Israel is that never to leave any raw food on Shabbat. On the onset of Shabbat, there's no raw food on the fire. No partially cooked, no raw food, nothing. Everything is fully cooked in order to leave it on the fire as the onset of Shabbat goes. Now we're talking about the situations like saying, when in case of emergency, you were on the road, you had no time to cook, you ran into the house. Or let's say there's going to be guests coming and your wife is not aware of it. You're going to put her under a lot of pressure. You're not going to have shalom bayit at home. The whole purpose, you're going to beat the purpose of Shabbat. That's not what Shabbat's supposed to be all about. So you come home, you say, fast, quick, right? The potatoes and the eggs, put them on. Right? So again, the potatoes and eggs, right? Can you put them on or can't you put them on? It's a she'elah poskim, not so simple at all. So let's say here's the thing. Listen to this. If I have a blech, I don't have a problem. What's the problem? We're worried if your food is 1/3 cooked, halfway cooked, we don't have a problem. Or maybe somebody's going to stir the coals, hire the fire. Why would somebody even hire the fire? There's no purpose. Why? Because it's edible. Once food is edible, Chachamim said that your mind is automatically off of the pot. You won't deal with it at all. You won't come to the point of hiring anything at all. You leave it alone.
How does the blech stop me?
Oh, blech remind you, it's Shabbat today.
No.
It does.
But it still doesn't stop me. You have to take out the knob.
Oh, according to halakha, you do not have to remove the knob.
The blech stops me.
Again, slow down. Not true. Slow down. 1 second. The blech is there to allow me to leave the food on the fire, and I'm not worried maybe you'll hire the flame. The poskim say that there are Rishonim like the Ran that mentions that you're not only supposed to hire the fire, cover the fire, right? Or remove the coals out, you're supposed to take out all the shovels and all the things that you use in order to stir the coals. You're supposed to remove it out of the kitchen too, which means that automatically will tell you that you must cover your knob. You might have to, not necessarily true, not all of them. Some blacks, they come out a little bit more and they go down. Make sure this thing is not, the front fire is not on, and you're not touching those knobs. Because then your mother will grab you by your ear until you get out of the kitchen and never come in. Because what will be, the knobs will melt. If the back one is on, I don't have a problem. But if the front one, you'll be surprised. I have a lot of guests who are coming to eat.
You need to put on 4 pots, 3 pots.
Yeah, 3, 4 pots. I'm going to do. Have the food get spoiled though, so that's not the way to go.
Rabbi,
One second. No, the black was for shehiyah, to leave the food on the fire. In order to leave the food is not cooked. If the food is not cooked 1/3, not cooked 1/2, Chachamim required you to make sure that you have the sheet of metal. Fire should be covered. That is how they told you. That's the only way to leave the food on. There's no other way how to do it. Why? Because we were worried that if the food is not cooked all the way and you need it for tonight, because the process of cooking began already and your mind is not off of it, like you mentioned something about throwing a raw piece of meat in there, we'll get there where your mind is off completely. I'm talking about where the food is already started partially cooking already. So automatically, because the food is partially cooking, it's already, and you, what's your tendency? You see the food's not going to be ready. My husband in a half hour is going to be home. Let me hire the fire. That will be the mistake people will do. But today, what we do is we put a black.
What's the mistake?
That you're going to hire the fire. Intentional mistake or unintentional mistake, whichever one it is. People have a tendency to do it. People are used to making things hiring the fire. How many times were we, as people, right? We walk into the house and because it's too dark, we just automatically, the hand goes onto the light switch. Does it ever happen? Sure it does. And next you say, I should put on the fire, put on the light. No, I'm not going to shut it off, right? One avera is enough. I don't want to do another one. So if you explain to you that it's a normal, it's an, alright, a lot of people say, so leave it alone. Okay, anyway. Now let's go.
And then on the way out, you shut it off, right?
Yeah, don't forget. No kosher switch. Okay, do not forget that. No kosher switch. Reminding you about the light switches. No kosher switch. Anyway,
Those are not real, right?
let's. No, they are real, but
She
you're not supposed to use
she
them.
told me, she's like, get a kosher switch. I'm like,
Yeah, they're real, but not
No,
real.
it's not allowed to be. Okay, now the next thing is, pay attention. The next thing is, you have to remember is like this. So as long as your mind is attached to that pot that's on open flame on fire, you have to make sure there's a blech over it. Only when your mind is not attached to the pot at all, only then can you leave the fire on the open flame without a problem. Meaning like this. What are the situations? The only time your mind is attached, Ben, the only time your mind is attached to the pot, and you're still thinking about it, and you have a tendency of hiring the fire, if the food started to cook, and it's almost halfway cooked. So our tendency is, I gotta make sure it's edible, and hire the flame. Because otherwise I have nothing to eat. The guests are coming. So that will be automatically a tendency. So as long as your mind is attached to the food, you have to make sure there's a black over there that will remind you, don't touch the flame. Okay? There's another situation where...
You can't always measure by a third or a halfway.
No, we have to...
Sometimes it could be halfway cooked, like Orshlo, for instance, it could be halfway cooked, but still, it's edible, but the texture is very important.
Okay, that doesn't mean you'll hire the flame.
It does.
No, it does not. I'll explain something to you right now.
Maybe you
Slow
need to
down.
lower the flame.
somebody might want tadagi.
Maybe you want to lower the flame.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah, maybe you don't know order.
We're talking with nothing to do with... I'm not getting into the concept of Mistamek via Pharaoh. I'm not getting into that. I'm getting you to the basic. I'm telling you, when is your mind attached to the pot? Your mind attached to the pot only if that pot is for tonight's use, and only if it was partially cooked, but did not get to a third cooked or half cooked. Only then is your mind attached to it that you will have a tendency of hiring the fire, and that's what will tell you have to use the blech. Now, but if your mind's off of it, when the food is cooked a third, cooked halfway already, so your mind is off of it completely. So then, blech, no blech, you're good to go. Because you don't have a tendency of hiring the fire. You took your mind off it. You know for sure that the food's going to cook by the time my husband comes. Anyways, on its own. I have nothing to do with it. It's edible. Mechurah. Now eat it. Let's go on. Next. Now, the next thing, another situation where your mind is also off of the food is going to be in a situation where the food is completely cooked. Your food is completely cooked. Believe me, you don't want to hire the flame. Because if you hire the flame, you'll kill your food. Or where the food is completely raw. When the food is completely raw, meaning and it has inside things that are very raw, they don't cook fast. It takes 2, 3, 4 hours to cook. Like for example, a person takes a big steak, big piece of meat, and just with the bone, right, and throws it inside the pot. You know for sure that when you threw that piece of meat inside there, your mind is, shut off. I'm not going to even stand a chance of having anything to do with this food. Okay? So that will be, it's called the kidra chayeta. Chazal say kidra chayeta, when you have kedera, a pot of raw, you will stay away from it. Pot of raw. Why? Because what's your plan? What is your plan exactly? The plan is that if I threw raw piece of meat, it's not for tonight. It's for sure for tomorrow. By tomorrow, the food for sure will be cooked. Okay? Say again, if you have raw food completely, we're talking about raw to the extent like meat, peppers is not considered raw, potatoes is not considered raw. If I put tchumi or sour, right before Shabbat, that's not called raw. You cannot leave it over an open flame, even if it's for tomorrow. Why? Because the chances are it cooks faster than meat, and the chances are that suddenly your husband, you know that your husband is the type to always say Jorabos, right? He always brings more friends home. And always something pops up. The white dog knocks on the door. We have guests, honey. We have guests, right? Mitzvah on the cheshbon of his wife. Should let her know that he's going to be doing it in advance. Because he brings it, so automatically she says, Wait, what am I going to give him to eat? There's nothing to eat. She runs to the kitchen, the first thing she does is, the potatoes with eggs, I forgot all about them, right? So that would be the biggest problem. So we're not allowed to do Kidra chayeta, raw pot, means you through. Let's say the food was not, let's say I'll give you a best example. I have potatoes and eggs on the fire. How will I take my mind off of it? by throwing inside there something very raw that takes a very long time to cook, like a big piece of meat. Yachnivor, you just took it and put it inside the pot. You put it in there. You know that your mind is off of that food.
But who cooks potatoes and eggs separately
I'm
other
just
than
giving
me?
you an example. I'm not telling you that this is what the situation is. Let's go on. I knew it's gonna come up. Let's go on. Okay?
A lot of people cook this separately.
No, we do it, but I'm saying when you put yachnior in there, that means you're boiling the potatoes and eggs.
Sure, you boil the
No,
potatoes.
we
and
steam
eggs.
them.
Steam them, sure. What's the difference if how you cook?
Then
How
you
you
put
cook
your
it?
meat in there.
Yeah, you threw a big piece of meat. It's a good idea. Try it. You're
The flavor is gone. It's gonna drip down.
No, it's not gonna be gone. Believe me, you spice it up the right way. It's marinated the right way. It's gonna come out delicious. How do you think they make pastrami? Let's go on. Okay.
How do you think they make onions?
They spice it up and they cook it. Let's go on. Okay, anyway, they steam it up. I think that's what they make it. I'm not sure though. Maybe you. Okay, let's go on. Let's go on. Let's go on. Okay. Okay, so we have, so this is the concept of grufa and kuma. So make it clear to understand that the only time you need a blech is when your mind is attached to the pot of food. The only time you do not need a blech is when your mind is not attached to the food at all. Like when the food is very raw, has a raw piece of meat inside there, where your mind is over it completely. Or when the food is fully cooked. Or when the food is machal ben drusai. When it's stirred or halfway cooked, you know that you're not doing anything with this pot anymore. And you turn around and walk out of the kitchen, you know everything is good. Now let's talk about concepts, things which are more applicable for us, that needs to be done in order to be considered garuf v'katuna. Garuf today does not apply so much. Taking out coals, shutting off the fire, does not really apply to us so much at all. Does not apply. The only thing we are applying to us is what? Is something called katum, right? Ktima, by going ahead and covering the flame. Covering the flame is the way to do it. Now, there's many sheirot and poskim how to do it. So the simplest way is, they say, according to all the poskim, is by going ahead and putting a blech on top of the fire. You put a sheet of metal on top, and you're good to go. According to some poskim, they say you should also remove the knobs. Or take aluminum foil and cover the knob on it, so you know that, oh, there's a reason why the aluminum foil is on it, so I shouldn't come to a point of touching it. Okay. What about an oven inside? The oven inside, you can't put a piece of metal on the thing. The thing is cooking. The whole oven is one big fire. Yes? The oven itself is one big fire. So what to do? So those people who go ahead and they use the oven on Shabbat, so they say the way to do it is, now I want to explain something very clearly. You should know, poskim speak about this. A person should not think that there's see, if you want me to have a reminder that I should not come too close to the fire, so let me just either remove the knobs completely, or let me just cover the knobs with the aluminum foil. I'll also know that it's Shabbat today, and I don't have to really cover my fire. So no. The point is you have to make sure the fire is covered. That metal sheet is a must. That's number one. And then there's additional. They say better if you also either remove the knobs, or what you do is make sure you don't break the things. You should know, a lot of times these things are glued so well, you take it off, you'll never put it back on. It's going to break, and then you're going to have a lot of shalom bayit issues. Please, don't. As I always say, it's okay to lose a battle as long as you don't lose the war. Okay? It is no point of winning a battle and losing the war at the end. Don't be the fool, right? Be careful. Now, let's go on. The point is to do it the right way. Make sure you win the battles and you win the wars also. Sometimes if you give in, sometimes give in. So those knobs, if they come out, do it. If they don't come out at all, don't do it. All you have to do is, as long as the fire is covered, you're good to go. But if you want to be machmir, take aluminum foil and wrap it up. Or they sell that extra, right, long blech that also goes down. The sheet of metal covers down, right, and it covers the knobs. Make sure, I said to explain before, that they shouldn't come to the point of melting them. Make sure only the back fire is on. If not, you'll have a problem. Also, make sure if you have little children in the house, it's not such a good idea if the front fire is on and they'll come to the point of touching the sheet of metal and they burn their hands too. Be very careful. Yeah. Sure, of course. Malkiel, I will not send my kids to your house. Let's go on. Next.
I wouldn't take
now,
them.
Baruch Hashem, makes us both work together. Yeah, teamwork. We're going to get to that right now. Wait, we're getting there. Slow down. There's a concept, though, comes a very interesting concept. What Yitzchak asked is, 1 second, what do we do with the oven? The oven itself is always fire. what are you covering exactly? What is there that will remind you not to do anything with the fire? So there are many companies today, they invented something called the Shabbos mode. It says Shabbos mode, by the way.
Wow.
Not Shabbat mode, Shabbos mode.
Yeah,
They have something called
for
Shabbos
us
mode.
it would be
By
Shabbat
go-
mode.
Shabbat mode, okay. For you. Yes. So you have to make sure the oven is black.
You'll change it to a
Now,
heat.
you have to, there's a whole thing that they say you're supposed to hold two. I don't know how it works. I never used it. I
must
never,
cook me.
pretty much never used the oven. But one time I did use the oven. There's a called Shabbat mode for a kiddush. One time I invited people to my house and I had to leave my kugel inside. So I had to put it on Shabbat mode and choose a very low degree temperature. So there's two buttons that you press on the dials over there, on the electrical, right? That dial that's there you press for a long time. So it says over there Shabbat mode and your whole control shuts off. By the way, it's very easy to undo it. Now, so when that's done, that being said and done, when you do that, that's called the Shabbat mode. But that's not enough. But you still didn't solve the problem because you still have the fire inside. Yes, you're not gonna hire the fire. A lot of poskim say that in itself is good enough, but there are some poskim who go ahead and they use something called in Shabbat. They have an insert inside it to put into the oven. They take out the trays. Again, they take out the trays.
You have to take out the tray?
Hello? Let's go. They take out the tray. Yeah. I wish I should have brought a toaster oven from the yeshiva. Okay. Let's go on. It says they take out the trays and they put inside the oven another box. They sell a box made out of aluminum. They put it inside, and this thing, believe it or not, has like a door open to it. And they take out a tray and they put the food inside. And they cover it, and that's how they close their oven inside, and that's how they do it. I have not seen many people doing that. But those people who do it, they do it for a reason, because they want to solve themselves the problem of, just disabling the control. Or let's say you're not able to disable the control by removing the knobs or covering the knobs for the oven control, right? That does not really give you the permission to use the oven inside, because something has to be done for you to remind you not to hire all over the place. Let's go on to the next concept. What about those hot plates? Hot plates that if they don't have a control, right? There's no adjust. You cannot adjust hot plata, right? If the hot plates that you cannot adjust the temperature, cannot adjust, nothing needs to be done. You just plug it in, and it's already not a problem with charge, because it's going to hold one temperature.
You set it and you forget it.
It's done one temperature only. Now, listen to this. 1 second, slow. I didn't get the hint, but I'm getting this slowly. I'm a bit slow. Let's go on. Malkil, I think you should go count more snowflakes outside. Let's go on. The next thing is like this. Okay, we have. Make sure you find 6 corners always. Okay. Now the next thing you have is the next one is. You'll tell me what was the hit for later, okay? Let's go on. So he says the next thing we have to know is like this. But what about those hot plates that have adjustable ones? I one time bought a hot plate and it had that control where you have able to higher and lower the temperatures. Which today they pretty much, I know that all the stores that sell stuff for Shabbat, they took them out of their stores. They have only those that have come without control at all. But those things that do have a control that you could higher and lower the flame.
Because those blocks they sell, those platas they sell very high.
Very high, yeah. So it's good to have it when it's adjustable. Yeah. So, but what do you do if it does have the adjusting? I had the first one was adjustable, it was perfect for me. But the thing is that when I heard that you're not really supposed to use it on Shabbat because you have a tendency of hiring and lowering the flame, it was a problem. Like you have, right? You mentioned, what about electric stove tops, right? You don't really see the fire, yeah? So what do? So again, electricity is a form of fire too. So the way to do it in your situation is you still have to apply a blech.
Wow.
You have to put a blech on top. If you don't want to put a blech, what you could do is you could put just aluminum foil. Take aluminum, heavy duty aluminum foil, rip it, cover the whole top, and that's what you use. Okay, it's good to use it, by the way, it's better to use a blech. Why? Because aluminum foil, a lot of times you pick up the pot, you pick up the whole aluminum foil with it. Now, so the benefit, so the blech, so that's one thing you could do by the electrical, put a blech on it, and also if it's possible to cover the knob, they say you should try to cover it, but you don't have to really, but that's the way to do with those electrical plots and hot plates. So each thing comes out though, is here comes the big one. All those people who like to use crock pots. A crock pot, is an issue. Because it has a control, right? Oh, it has off, low,
Don't touch it.
high.
Buttons, no switch.
Oh, you already came out like that. They have also digital ones.
Yeah.
I don't have
Okay, mine still comes from the pre-nomadic times.
from
Right?
Antiochus.
From Antiochus time, right? So those,
No, they don't have they don't have
so
that.
they have the control, right, of having off, low, high, and warm.
They have digital.
Okay, please never use warm. It will never cook. You just stay warm. It's just spoil. Just advice for life, right? Don't use warm. Now, it's either high or low. So for Shabbat, I always use low. But here comes the problem. Just because it's on low, there's few things I have to do to this crock pot. I have to cover the cover control. It has to be covered. And besides, right, but that's not really sufficient. What you're really supposed to do is you gotta cover the crock pot. So what you do is a lot of people, I used to go to their house and I would see this and I would look at them and say, everything is all right? Everything is, you sure everything is all right? No, but now I see that I learned the halakha. I said, yeah, they're right 100%. In a way, it makes sense. What they would do is they would take the aluminum foil and on the inside and to the outside, like this, sticking out, they would line up the oven, that crock pot, the metal, the bottom, right, where they put the insert into, that thing was covered with aluminum foil. Why? It was also there to remind them, again, the same thing, not to higher or lower the flame on Shabbat.
What if you
They
use
did
only
one
for
of controls
Shabbat?
and then one around it.
Huh?
They cover it twice. Then one.
Controls is one thing, and then also they would go ahead and put
But
the
they do it-
line,
you only-
line,
you
line.
only use it for Shabbat.
Yeah, I know you use it only for Shabbat.
So you know it's a
That
Shabbat thing.
doesn't mean you're not. The hot platter with the control on it is also only used on Shabbat,
Yeah.
and we still advise you to go ahead if you could adjust the
like a light
temperature.
switch when you walk
If
into
you
the
could
room, like-
adjust a temperature, we say it's always to cover that and to put a sheet of aluminum foil covered on
You don't
top.
have to.
We have those that have no controls to adjust temperatures. We don't have to.
Oh, yeah,
But those that have the controls and you are able to adjust the temperature, the older ones that they used to make, those you have to cover. They say you're supposed to cover the
Better
aluminum.
to.
Not better to. You're supposed to cover the aluminum foil. Not better. You're supposed to. It's better to cover the knob. That's better too. But the tray itself, where the heat source of heat's coming from, that had to be covered.
With no knobs? With no,
If there's no knobs at all, it's good to go. Just plug it in and use it. Nothing needs to be done. Only those that are adjustable, we say put aluminum foil, and also preferable, better to cover the knob, the
Aluminum
control
foil on
knob
top
also.
of the plata?
Yeah.
What?
That if it has the adjustable temperature control. Only that is brought down. Why?
Or buy a new one.
Why? Simple
Brought
reason.
down where?
Because we're afraid maybe you lower or higher the
Where is it brought
temperature.
down?
It's brought down in
So just a
there.
reminder.
Brought down. Halacha. Let's proceed further. Put down.
Which Aaron?
Bring put down. Put down. They speak about it.
Churiv.
No. Let's go on. Another thing is, okay, we did pretty much everything as far as Garuf and Katum. So we got everything clarified and understood as far as we go as far as that. The next thing you have to speak about is the concept of Chazara, returning food back on fire. Now the Shulchan
About
Aruch,
this last time, no?
we spoke about it last time, but this time we're going to explain it to the finest detail, what's allowed, what's not allowed. Okay? The Shulchan Aruch brings down in Siman Resh Nun Gimel, okay, which is 253 for those who want to look it up, right? In Siv Bet. They bring down over there pretty much 4 to 5 conditions in order to have your pot stay on fire. But the one thing I have to explain before we go further is about Garuf, on the onset of Shabbat. You have to remember the following concept, that what we spoke about, okay, well, the Poskim make a differentiation of what kind of food you want to have on fire, what kind of food that you want to remain on fire on the onset of Shabbat. So they say that preferable when it comes to soup liquids, right? Liquids, you have to make sure that it has to be, besides the fact that it's cooked already. Yeah, if you want to leave it on the fire as the onset of Shabbat is. Besides that, you have to make sure that a lot of people, they have this problem. What's the problem? The problem is that they have their food off the fire completely. And right before Shabbat, they put their pot of soup back on fire. Now that soup is cold. They made it yesterday, they made it in the morning, they made it in the early afternoon. On the onset of Shabbat, the soup is cold. So we know this bishul achar bishul when it comes to liquids. So they say, the poskim bring down, they say it's better. I don't know if it's better, but if it's actually also makef, some say it's a problem that has to be resolved. So I think according to Sfaradim, it could be very lenient, not a problem. That if right before Shabbat you put it on, because if it was cooked before Shabbat, I think it would be perfectly fine to leave it on without it being hot, very hot, in order for it to remain like this. But I know for sure that according to Ashkenazim, they'll be machmir. To what extent? To make sure that their soup is hot. The liquids are hot. All the liquid inside the soup is hot to a degree of 160.
I thought they're more lenient about liquid.
No, much more stringent.
Why, they're allowed to put the soup back on?
What are you talking about?
They're
Only the Moroccan, only the Yemenite and some Moroccans, but not Ashkenazim. Liquids, never. They're very strict. Very strict.
Serious?
No liquids at all. Nothing.
They don't follow Rambam?
No. It's only the Yemenite that follow the Rambam and the Rashba. It's not only the Rambam, by the way. I think it was also the Rashba, I believe. I think it was also the Rashba, if I'm not mistaken. No, not Ashkenazim. No. So they would go ahead. You would look into it. You would go ahead. They would go ahead.
I think I read what he read.
Okay, you would have to go ahead. They would make sure to go ahead and to make sure that their soup or the liquids that they want to leave on the fire at the onset of Shabbat, right before Shabbat comes in, before Shkia time, they would have to make sure that those liquids are completely hot, 160 Fahrenheit, 160 degrees, that you know for sure that you're not running into a problem of cooking after cooking. Okay? Like the famous thing, they have a big tshuva in Chama Vadeh is a whole question. Let's say the fire was shut off. The electricity, there's a timer, right? It shuts off, and then it turns back on. Can you use the liquids that are inside to cook up, warm up again?
We had that.
We had that issue over here with the urn that had no liquid in it at all. There was a different issue.
No, the timer you said it would be.
Yeah, we had that issue here, but according to Chama Vadeh, it's not a problem at all.
So
he says it's not. He's
So
mekir.
if I put my daughter
He's
in front of the stove, and I don't tell her to touch the knobs, but she turns it.
She turns it.
Is that a problem?
Can you go ahead and eat from the food? If the food was cooked all the way, and she didn't really do anything to the food, it's not doing anything. It's just by turning on the fire, you're only heating it up actually. So then you would or simply understand.
If she made it lower, it's even better.
If you would simply understand that she really didn't do anything, it's not really anything. So I would have to look into it. It's not a simple issue. I have to ask the Sheila. Okay? B'ezrat Hashem, next time when we get together, we'll talk about Chazara. Just don't running out of time. If I started, we're never going to finish already past 10 o'clock. Ashkan.